Breaking tonight, new political fallout after Donald Trump is again pressed on who will be his foreign policy and military advisors, a question we have heard a lot of him over the last 6 months. Watch.
Who do you talk to for military advice right now?
Well, I watch the shows. I mean, I really see a lot of great, when you watch your show and all of the other shows and you have the generals.
It might give people an increased level of confidence if they knew who you're talking to.
Well, I can do that, and I'm going to release a list in about 2 weeks. I'm going to be announcing a team in about a week that is really a good team.
I've been meeting with some tremendous people, and I haven't made exactly my decision yet, but you'll have it in due time.
Who are you consulting with consistently so that you're ready on day one?
I'm speaking with myself, number one, because I have a very good brain and I've said a lot of things. I talk to a lot of people, and at the appropriate time, I'll tell you who the people are.
Joining me now, Stephen Miller, who's a senior advisor for the Trump campaign and former top aide to Republican Senator Jeff Sessions. Stephen, good to see you.
Hey, great to be here.
So, and there ensued the endless mocking online and on Twitter that he's speaking to himself because he has a big brain and he knows he's said a lot of things, right? Which sort of begs the question of, is that what the cabinet's going to look like? Who are the national security advisors going to be?
Well, I think it's fair to say that if Donald Trump is president, which we expect he will be, that Donald Trump will be the person guiding the foreign policy. And that's the point that he was making, is that if you look at the last 15 years, he's been prescient on the major foreign policy issues that we're facing.
It's not like he was, like a Hayden character who ran the CIA and ran the NSA.
No, but I mean, his point was...
He's been a businessman. He
right.
needs some foreign policy advisors.
And somehow, as a businessman, he managed to see what all the people in Washington couldn't see. He saw it with the threat of Osama bin Laden. He saw it with the war in Iraq, to cite two very big examples.
Well, he's on record as favoring that war before he says he was against it.
Well, he was a private citizen, and he says that he was critical of it from the very earliest stages.
Well, we have him on tape saying that he supported it.
The public record shows that he was critical of it when others supported it. And that's a very big distinction between him and, say, Senator Cruz, who's reflexively interventionist. And that's a huge difference in this race. But I do want to talk about who is advising, because that's really what we're here to talk about, who is advising Donald Trump on foreign policy. And that's my former boss, Senator Jeff Sessions, who is one of the most respected members of the Senate, obviously a frequent guest on your program. Anyone who knows Jeff Sessions will tell you that he is the most straight-shooting, sincere, honest, frankly, apolitical person you'll ever meet in Washington. And so about a week ago, Donald Trump appointed Jeff Sessions the chairman of his Foreign Policy Advisory Committee. I had the chance to talk to Senator Sessions and his military advisors today for about half an hour before coming here, and we discussed some robust foreign policy ideas, and I look forward to getting a chance to talk with you about them.
The thing about Trump is, so he says he likes General Jack Keane and so on. Then General Keane said, I've never spoken to Donald Trump in my life. So he saw him on the shows, and but at some point he has to sit down with these people, actually take the incoming.
Well, he's sat down with Senator Jeff Sessions, and he's spoken about these issues at length.
Okay, but shouldn't there be some military folks in there?
Senator Jeff Sessions has been for 20 years on the Armed Services Committee.
So it's all about Sessions.
Well, the news that I'm here to tell you about tonight, and that we haven't had a chance to discuss, is that Senator Sessions is the chairman of his Foreign Policy Committee. And that is a major piece of news. I mean, who's Ted Cruz's guy? Who's John Kasich's guy? I can tell you that Donald Trump has chosen Jeff Sessions, and Jeff Sessions has been meeting for hours now, putting together a team of foreign policy advisors, military experts, intelligence experts.
Any names you want to volunteer?
We're not making any news tonight, but the name that I want people to go home with is Jeff Sessions.
Okay, let me ask you this, because Donald Trump, one of the things people love about him is he's tough, right? And he's already come out with this ad against Hillary Clinton. He is focusing now on the general election, less so on the guys he's running against in the GOP. And he has come out with this ad. Watch this. I mean, you tell me whether that is what people love about Donald Trump. He does he do that stuff himself? Does he have just a knack for how to get to the weak spot? How to sort of exploit?
Donald Trump is brilliant when it comes to getting to the weak spot. And of course, we've seen it throughout this campaign in terms of you've had some very mighty and powerful politicians who have crumbled to nothing trying to go up against Donald Trump. I will be democratic and fair tonight, and I won't name names of people who can't respond and attack them, but we all know who they are.
They used to stand on the debate stage, and they no longer do.
Yes, they no longer do.
They were on the edge of the stage, and then they just, well, they were gone.
So I might say that tonight that he is previewing just a sampling of how he might go after Hillary Clinton
And
in
as
a
he
general
said,
election.
he hasn't even started on her, but maybe
Right.
this is like a palate cleanser.
Right.
It's not the appetizer.
It's an hors
even.
d'oeuvre.
It's like, yeah,
An hors
it's just
d'oeuvre.
like the sorbet before you get going. Stephen, great to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for being here. Here now with another perspective, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Waltz, who's a former Special Forces commander, senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, and author of Warrior Diplomat, a Green Beret's battles from Washington to Afghanistan. Thank you very much for being here, Michael. So your
Megan.
take, first of all, on Senator Jeff Sessions stepping in, arranging the National Security Advising Team to Donald Trump.
Well, let's just look at the numbers here, Megan. You have one senator and his advisor who you just had on. On the other hand, you have over 100 respected Republican foreign policy experts that have signed a public letter saying that they cannot morally and ethically support Donald Trump's candidacy, much less him as commander-in-chief. Why? Well, let's look at his hateful rhetoric towards Muslims, 1.6 billion around the world, including many great Americans. Let's look for his cozying up to Putin, who you just saw in the ad, yet Donald Trump thinks he's a great man. Let's look at his advocacy for a trade war against China. And let's look at for just these wild swings. On the one hand, we want military intervention all over the world, 20 to 30,000 troops in Syria. On the other hand, we need to get out of the Middle East and invest in our infrastructure.
Well, what about
his foreign policy isn't moored in principle. He's saying what the voters want to hear, and that's why you have so many experts in an unprecedented way saying we cannot back the Republican nominee.
Yeah, that happened the day of our last debate, March 3rd.
Yeah.
They came out with that. But what about Stephen's point that he says Donald Trump has been prescient, was his word, on issues like the Iraq War, which he is on record as having supported, but he says it was a weak, like, I guess so, and then shortly thereafter was against, and that he did predict Osama bin Laden was going to come attack this country, prior to 9/11. So he has an instinct that will serve him well.
I think shooting from the hip and gut reaction when it comes to these complicated, difficult issues overseas, particularly with all of the threats facing the United States, from China and Russia to cyber attacks to ISIS and Islamic extremism to homegrown violent extremism. I don't think we can afford a commander-in-chief that's learning on the job and shooting from the hip. And to date, even though he's leading the Republican nomination fight, can only name one advisor. And the thing that has me most disturbed, Megan, as a military officer and a special forces officer, is his insistence that the military will just do his beck and call, even if what he is advocating and what he's demanding constitute war crimes.
But then he walked that back the next day, and he says that he can't do that.
Well, I think maybe Senator Sessions informed him that he was advocating bombing civilians, and the military actually has an obligation to say no.
Before I let you go, quickly, Michael, that ad
Sure.
against Hillary Clinton, effective?
Well, look, nobody disputes the fact that Donald Trump is a master at spinning the media. Lord knows he's spun the media now for the last 8 months for hours and hours of free airtime by saying sensational things. But sound bites and a reality TV star do not make a commander-in-chief. America deserves better, and our soldiers deserve better.
Colonel, thanks for being here.
Sure.